Hey everybody, I just want to let you guys know that I recently have merch. If you guys want to check out in the link in the description below, and if you guys want to get anything or even just check it out, and you can get it for yourself or a gift for somebody, whatever it may be. And I also want to let you guys know that I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, so I would appreciate if you guys hit that subscribe button. And here is the video.
When I was little, something so strange happened to me that I still can't understand to this day. I had what I think was a dream. The reason I say that is because I can't remember if it was a dream. In my head, it's just a memory, but I know that this couldn't have possibly happened, so it had to have been a dream. That I was in my grandparents' house, and I had walked out into their front room to find my grandma, and her back was away from me. She was facing the door, and she was looking out the screen door, and I asked her something, and she turned around, and it was my grandma, but she had red eyes, and she was smiling at me, and I freaked out, and I turned around to go tell my family members, and she had been walking behind me and just saying, no one's ever going to believe you, no one will believe you. And I could see her as I walked past a mirror in the house, just kind of right behind me, staring at me, smiling with red eyes. And I knew, obviously, this wasn't my grandma. Looked just like my grandma, but it wasn't her. And I remember going back into the family room and telling my family and seeing my real grandma in there and saying, there's a woman out there and she's pretending to be you, and I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. And all my family went out to the front room, and there was nobody there, obviously. But then I remember it cut to a different memory of, it was the same day, we were all in the house sitting around the table for a birthday or something like that, and I was facing this mirror, and I could see her reflection in the mirror standing behind me, this fake grandma, while my real grandma was sat right beside me at this table. So weird. I don't have an explanation for it. I know it had to have been a dream, because obviously that didn't happen, and none of my family remembers it. I even remember asking my mom about it one time. She was like, that didn't happen. And it was, but it's very strange to me that I can't remember it as being a dream. I just remember this incident as a memory.
There's an old saying that says that once you have gone to bed and called it a night, that you should not leave your home after that. That if anybody were to text you and invite you out, it's essentially death inviting you out themselves. Unfortunately, Mario didn't listen. Mario's actually my friend's cousin, so this just recently happened. I also suggest that you stay till the end of the story because it has a crazy twist. So Mario was hanging out one night at home with his parents when he decided to go to bed. It was about 11 o'clock at night. He had already gone to bed when his phone goes off and it's one of his friends inviting him out. Apparently this new club had just opened in town and they all were gonna meet over there. Mario decided to just get dressed and leave. He didn't even tell his parents. I don't even think his parents even realized that he had left. They had already gone to bed themselves. He goes to the club and he meets up with his friends. Once they get there, being that the club was new, there was a long line to get in. Mario and his friends are just kind of waiting in line when out of nowhere this random car drives by and just shoots people. He does a drive-by shooting. Mario's unfortunately one of the people that get hit. Now back at Mario's parents' house, his parents are already in bed when out of nowhere they get woken up because they hear loud banging coming from the front door. The mom very cautiously goes towards the front door. She's a little confused because she's not used to people coming at this time. Whoever's knocking sounds like they are in distress. She has this little door right where the peephole is, so she can kind of open up and get a good view of who it is. She opens the peephole, looks out, and sees Mario standing there frantically asking her to open the door. She says that even though it was dark out, she could tell that her son had blood coming from his forehead. She goes and opens the door as fast as she can. When she opens it, Mario's not there. It's complete silence. There's no one there. So what came to his mom's house was essentially his confused spirit running to the person that he feels the safest with, which is his mother. I share a lot of stories on here, but that one just really hit me different. It's so incredibly sad. even after we passed on, we still look for our comfort, like whoever makes us feel the safest, and that's who that was.
Okay, so in honor of Halloween, I want to tell you my first ghost story as a kid, something that happened when I was 5 years old. So my mean grandma, I'm not calling her that because of this story, she was just wretched, but she gave me this doll. It had this wire body wrapped in little cloth pieces with tiny bells for hands and feet and one on its hat. I hated it, but I was a very polite kid, trauma. So I pretended to love it. I carried it around the house for a couple days, setting it in different places so my parents would notice that I was playing with it, you know? And then on the second night, I brought it into my room and I set it on my dresser, which was on the wall opposite of my bed. I got into my pajamas and sat on my bed to read a book. I was deep in my book when something moved at the edge of my vision. I looked up and the doll was in the air. It floated slowly from the dresser to the foot of my bed, landed in an upright sitting position, and then fell onto its side. I screamed. I mean, like that primal, piercing scream that every parent knows means real danger. And my mom came running. She said that I was as white as a sheet, pressed into the wall, shaking, when I told her that the doll jumped onto my bed from the dresser. Of course, she tried to be logical, as parents do, and asked if maybe I moved it myself and had forgotten, but I kept saying, I saw it fly. And I was crying and a mess. So she finally took the doll out of my room all the way to the kitchen, which was 3 rooms and around 3 corners away, and put it on top of the refrigerator. And then she sat with me until I fell asleep. When I woke up, Mom told me the doll was gone, and for years I thought that was the end of the story. 17 years later, my mom told me what happened on that same night. Around 2 a.m., Mom woke up to hear a faint jingling sound. She followed the sound to the hallway, and right outside of my bedroom door, there was a tiny little jingle bell. She immediately checked the doll. One of the hands, one of the bells, was gone. So she took it outside, buried it in the trash, said a prayer. I never saw the doll again in real life, but it haunted my nightmares for years. Every so often, I'd jolt awake in the middle of the night screaming like I was 5 years old again, and my poor mother would come running, just like she did that first time. True story.
Can someone tell me if I need to be concerned or not? My daughter is 3.5, turning 4 in the next couple of months, and she, every so often, within, like literally from when she could talk, she has been telling us that she sees shadow people in her room. And when it first started, I really tried to not have any kind of reaction because I didn't want to scare her. We're not super religious or anything, but the first time she said that they were so kind and that they helped her go back to sleep. So I thought, okay, maybe she woke up from a dream and it was just, you know, it was something that's like, you know how kids are. Like she just thought that she saw something because she had a dream and fell back asleep. But she's been talking about them now for years. She's going to turn 4. And this morning she told me that she woke up and the shadow people were in her room. And I asked her, oh, well, what do they say? And she said, well, Mommy, they don't say anything. They don't have mouths. I said, oh, that's great, sweetie. Were they nice to you? And she said, yeah, they're nice. They don't really say or do anything. Sometimes I can hear them in my head. Oh, okay. And what do they say to you in your head? And she said that they basically just say, go back to sleep. And that she didn't really have much to say about it. She said that she's not scared of them, but she doesn't really want to talk to them because they're just shadows. She said that she's not scared of them, which is good, I guess. But that she doesn't like to look at them for too long because they don't have faces. And I asked how many of them are there, and it's always 2. There's always 2 of them. She says that she wakes up and the shadow people are in her room, and sometimes they dance, but they don't scare her. Is this something to be concerned about? We're not really a religious family. If anything, we err on the side of spiritual. I don't get any negative vibes, but I can ask her about them and record it so that y'all can see what I'm talking about, but it's been going on years now, and she genuinely doesn't seem afraid of them, but is this just one of those toddler things that just happens, or, like, should I be concerned about this? I don't.
Do you guys want to hear one of the most unsettling stories I've ever heard in my entire life? Because here we go. Night submitter did not tell me whether I could use her real name or not, so I'm going to call her Amber. So Amanda wasn't trained to sleep by herself until she was like 11, 12 years old. She was really scared of the dark, so she would sleep with her parents. So she was around 11, 12 years old when her parents were finally like, listen, you have to sleep by yourself. Like, you gotta go in your own bed. So they did that. They made her go in her own bed. She would tell her parents, like, listen, I'm terrified of the dark. I cannot sleep by myself. So her dad was like, okay, I'll tuck you in every single night. And I'll watch you go to sleep. So he would tuck her in. He would wait till she would go to sleep, and then he would leave the room and go to bed. Every single night she would leave her door open because she was afraid of the dark, and everything went pretty smoothly until she started realizing that her dad was leaving in the middle of the night. Now, it's important to note that from her bedroom she could see her parents' door, so if they were to walk out of their room she would see them. So one particular night she cannot sleep. She is tossing and turning in bed because she is just riddled with fear, so she is wide awake. She can't remember exactly what was freaking her out, but suddenly she hears the faint sound of footsteps just walking down the hallway. So in her head she's thinking, okay, my mom just got up, because her father was actually sleeping beside her. But then she realizes that if her mom were to get up, she would have seen her mom come out of her room. She was facing in that direction. There was no other way around it. She would have seen her come out of her room, and she did not. Her body freezes with fear at this realization. Then she hears the footsteps like closing in, and she is so scared at this point that she literally cannot move. So she looks down in hopes of seeing an incoming shadow of somebody. I'm not sure why she wanted to see that, but I guess in her head she was thinking that she didn't want it to be a ghost. There was none. She keeps her eyes on the floor, and then she sees these dark gray feet with cracks in them. Then she slowly starts looking up, and it's this woman wearing this white nightgown with blood spattered all over it. Her skin was a dark grayish color with visible cracks, and she looked like she was burned alive. Her hair was puffy black and tangled, and then she starts slowly walking into the bedroom and stops by the door. Curiosity made her lift her gaze up even further up, and then they make eye contact. These lifeless pair of eyes bored into hers for a few seconds before the woman lets out this deep, heavy breath, like Then the deep breaths turn quicker and more rapid, and then the corner of her mouth starts to crack up a little bit as if she was trying to smile, but it wasn't reaching her eyes. She could not stand the sight of this thing, and so she just starts screaming at the top of her lungs, hoping that this will scare this thing away or wake her father up. After she starts screaming, she said that it just felt odd. She felt weird, and her father wasn't waking up. And at the same time, this woman is breathing crazy heavy and then like trying to laugh. So her mouth is cracked a little bit upward, but her eyes aren't smiling. She's breathing heavy and trying to laugh at the same time. So just like that. And then finally, the woman just starts walking away as she's still trying to laugh. But that labored breathing is still continuing, and that smile on her face. The moment the woman walked out of the room is when her father finally woke up, and she was in such like a gaze looking at this woman freaking out and screaming that she didn't even notice her father trying to like shake her. Her father was like, hello, hello, as she's just screaming at the top of her lungs. The only words that she can even get out of her mouth are ghost, woman, nightgown. But her dad just ushers her back to sleep and tells her that it was a bad dream. The next day, she tells her father again when she's a little bit more calm what happened. And he's like, you just had a nightmare. And she said, I was awake. How could I have been screaming if I had a nightmare? I was wide awake. While I was screaming, I was still looking at her. So it could not have been a dream. So what do you guys think this was? What do you think of this story? Because it wasn't sleep paralysis, because she could move. She just couldn't move out of fear. When she finally was able to move and she was able to scream, you can't scream during sleep paralysis. So that was terrifying. That would just, I don't even know what I would do if I saw that. I think I would lose my mind. I think I would lose it for the rest of my life. She said that this was actually her first paranormal experience, which means that she has more, I'm guessing, and I would like to hear them if she has more. This story really scared me. It's stories like this that are so visual, and like when people actually see something or hear something, that really freaking terrifies me. And I think it scares me more than other people, because whenever I make these videos, they don't do like the best. It's videos that are like absolutely wild, right? But this story it's scary. It is fucking scary. Like, imagine seeing that while you're laying in your bed, just trying to sleep when you're already afraid of the dark. Oh my God. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, suggestions below in the comments, but as always, please be respectful. Thank you. And with that being said, I'm now gonna do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Michelle.Pier61, you left such a nice comment, and you said that I remind you of your daughter. That's so sweet. I love that. Thank you so much for what you said. I appreciate you commenting and pushing my videos out. I appreciate you being kind and just watching my videos in general. The support means absolutely everything to me, and I hope that you know how much I appreciate it, especially the kindness, and this is my way of showing my gratitude. So thank you so much. I love you. Stace1434, I cannot remember if I gave you a shout out or not, and I can't find it, so if I did already, I guess you get two. But thank you so much. You said that I was your favorite creator, and that means everything to me. You guys know how much that means to me. Thank you so much. And I love that you listen to my stories while you go to sleep. I listen to spooky stories too when I go to sleep, because I'm a weirdo. I listen to them all the time, so I totally get that. I love it. I love it when other people do that, and I love that I am now a content creator that other people listen to. It will always make me feel like so good. I'll never get over it. It's such a crazy honor to be that for other people. You have no idea. So thank you so much for telling me that. I truly appreciate you, girl. You are the best. Thank you for supporting me, and I love you. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button, and I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories, have a safe night, and what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
Okay, I have a ghost story to tell you. I'm in a new hospital, and I was walking around, and it's empty, and it's kind of creepy, and I heard some noises, and I started thinking about all the different like ghost stories that I have from years of working in ICU. But the creepiest story that I have, sorry about that noise, it's loud, but I can't turn it off. The creepiest story that I have. So I worked in a hospital that the unit that I worked on had never been anything but a cardiovascular ICU, or cardiothoracic. It was hearts and lungs, and heart transplants, total artificial heart, lung transplants, anything cardiac related. So on this floor, there was a patient that we had one time. There was a particular room that kind of gave you the heebie-jeebies when you walk past it. And we had a patient in that room that he was not a nice human. He was somebody that I had actually known like outside of the hospital, so I never took care of him because it was a conflict of interest. But one night he was confused, so he was just saying kind of mean, hateful things. But one of the things that he kept saying is he kept using a racial slur, the N-word, and he kept saying, "Get that little racial slur out of here. He's playing in here. Get him out of here. I don't want that little racial slur in my room." And everybody, like, this man, I didn't like him outside of the hospital, and as a patient, and was confused, and it was not good. But anyway, he ended up leaving that room, got better, left. And then when you're in the hospital, you can get confused, and it's very normal for you to hallucinate. You have medications on board, like, that's just kind of a normal thing. It just kind of, sometimes your true colors show up whenever you are on medications, you know, I've had women punch me that, you know, their family members say like, oh, they're so sweet and kind, but then they get on, you know, medications and then they are, you know, hitting and kicking. And anyway, anesthesia can do that to you, as well as medications, and you know, your even your sodium gets off. You know, there's all sorts of things that can influence you. So we didn't think much of it. I think it was like 2 days later, not just a couple days later, we had the sweetest little old lady in that room. And I did take care of her. She was adorable. I swear she was, I can't remember, she was in her late 80s, but she was so sweet and so cute. Poor lady. But she was not confused. And she kept telling me, she was like, can you get my purse for me? Give me my purse. I really need my purse. It's over there. And I was like, what do you need your purse for? And a lot of times we don't give patients their belongings, because there might be extra pills in there and we got to know what they're taking. So I said, well, let me help you go through your purse. And you know, what is it that you want out of there? She says, I have some candy in there. I really want to get some candy for that little boy. He keeps coming in here and playing, and I have some candy that I'd like to give him. And I said, what, there's no little boy? And she says, yes, there's a little black boy. He keeps playing over there in the drawers, and he's looking for some food, but I have some candy, and I'd like to give it to him. This unit had never been a pediatric unit. There was never children. There wasn't any children on the unit, and nobody was visiting, especially no children. It's pretty creepy.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I had to go out of town for work, and I was gone for a total of like, I want to say like 8 months at the time. Obviously I didn't want to pay for my rent whenever I was gone, so I decided to get a sublet. Like, just disclaimer, I'm not blaming her for this. This could not have anything to do with her, but I'm just stating what I know. So anyway, so there's weird energy. I'm trying to just ignore it for the most part and not really think much of it, but I am, you know, I am very sensitive to energies and very sensitive to spirits and stuff like that. So have been for a while, but I haven't ever felt anything in my house. I've only, you know, it's only been like weird experiences out in the world. But anyway, get back. It just feels weird. Like, there's just something off about the entire apartment. But mainly, the main part where something's off is in my living room. I don't know, but like on that side of the house, it just feels dark. And I couldn't figure out why, or still don't really know why. I started looking at my cameras in the apartment just to see if there was anything weird or like off that was happening, or, you know, just like the basic paranormal things you would look for, of like things moving or like voices or whatever. And I was back for probably like, I don't know, I was back for probably like 3 months, maybe 4. And there was one time where I was talking to my dog and I had just given her a treat. She was eating, and I didn't hear anything while filming her eating her little carrot. And I played it back. There was a moment where she just stops completely and stares right next to me like someone was there, which she's been doing more and more since we've gotten back to the apartment. I think that's when I asked her, like, is it good, just to get her to, like, you know, distract her. And in the video, when I watched it back, I heard a whisper, and I listened to it over and over again. And I don't want to like put out what I think it says. I kind of want you to listen and like let me know what you think it says. But I have my opinions, and I'll share in the comments. But same day, I'm going to get ready for work, and this is maybe like less than an hour after the video. So I'm already like, you know, hyper aware of something going on. So I started getting ready and I'm in my room doing my makeup and like thought I hear things, but of course I feel like I'm being paranoid at this point. There's this one point where I'm getting ready and I swear I heard something, and honestly I'm just so curious at what's going on in my apartment at this point that I'm like, let's go back to the security cameras, let's see what we can see or hear what we can hear, and then just kind of like go from there. Like maybe it's nothing, maybe it was just like a one and done, but like no, I feel like this thing wanted my attention. I decided to wait to like watch anything back until I'm out of the apartment and I'm like in my car, headed to work, whatever. And so I get in my car and I put my phone on, you know, to the car, trying to figure out like what we can hear through the car speakers. I start playing it and like everything's like normal, fine. You can hear me kind of like fumbling around in the back, but it's nothing like, I'm not talking, there's no voices, I'm not talking to anyone, I'm not on the phone, nothing. I'm listening and I'm driving along and I'm like, all of a sudden, and it was like unmistaken, I hear a woman's voice say something. And again, I don't want to put it in your head of like what it is, so I would rather like you just let me know in the comments if like what you hear for both of these videos. I've dealt with spirits before, but I've never had to like get them out of where I live, and so this was new for me, new territory. So I, you know, post it and I'm like, friends, help, I think there's a spirit and I don't know if it's a happy one in my apartment. So, you know, I'm getting comments and like multiple people were like, get some sage, which luckily I already had, walk around the house, just let this spirit entity, whatever you want to call it, let it know that it's your home and you have to like tell it to get out. And so I look like a crazy person doing this in my apartment. So since I had saged it, I haven't really heard anything since, but like I still feel a presence. Like one of my best friends stays over a lot and they'll sleep on the couch, and he was saying like he could feel in the middle of the night like something there, and he was like, I was up almost all night, like, he was like, I was in and out of sleep all night trying to figure out like what's going on. I didn't tell him about this because I didn't want to freak him out, and then whenever he said it, I was like, okay. I feel like at this point I'm just kind of living with whatever it is. As long as it stays neutral, we're good. Like I can coexist with whatever it is. I feel like since then it's been better, but I definitely still feel it. It, you know, feels a little weird every now and then, a little dark every now and then, but as a whole, it does feel better. Anyway, I'm gonna put the video up next, so let me know.
Is it good?
Night shift is all fun and games. It's no management, it's good vibes, until your dementia patient starts talking about the person they're seeing in their room, and they're a little bit too insistent on the person that they're seeing in their room. And then the other nurse that you're working with is like, listen, that empty room, I just watched someone get out of the bed and walk to the bathroom. And you're like, what? And then you go back to the side of the unit that you're sitting on by yourself, and there's no one over there, and no noise, and no one walking around, except for the paranormal activity.
One of my favorite hobbies is reading scary stories on Reddit, so let's read some together. When I was about 14, my parents left me alone overnight for the first time. I grew up in a small farming community, so my parents really had nothing to worry about. They left and I decided to take an awesome bubble bath and paint my nails like all girls everywhere, obviously. While I was in the bath, I heard our back door open. I thought I was hearing things, and besides, I had locked all the doors per my mom's orders. But then I heard the kitchen floor squeaky spot. I didn't know what to do, so I just went under the bubbles and left my head out. I saw 2 shoes through the crack between the door and the floor. I could hear a person breathing. They stood there for about 30 seconds and then walked away. I heard the door slam, but I didn't move. I just stayed there until the water was freezing and cried. Then I got out, called my grandma, and checked the doors. The back door was unlocked and the lock hadn't been messed with or broken. Later that week, we learned that a man was breaking into farmhouses. Literally one of my worst fears, like anytime I'm taking a bath or a shower, I always feel like I hear somebody breaking into my house. Like, I just moved into a basement suite. Every time I went out, I would lock the deadbolt, but not the door handle. But when I came home, a lot of the time the deadbolt would be unlocked and the door handle would be locked. At first, I thought I was just confused about which one I had locked, so I started paying more attention. It kept happening, and I realized someone must be going in when I went out. I assumed it was the landlady and was annoyed, but didn't say anything at first. Then one day I came home and found the wrong lock locked again. I went in pissed off and opened the fridge to get something to eat. There was a book in the fridge that I had never seen before. I collected old books, and this one was published in the early 1900s, which creeped me out completely because it was like it had been left for me. I finally called my landlady and asked if she was going into my apartment and told her what had happened. She freaked out, said the last person who lived there was a really creepy guy with a mental health and drug problems. She got all the locks changed that day, and it never happened again. So I guess the guy who lived there before was breaking into her apartment. He still had like a key. This happened to a friend of mine. It's a Sunday. She comes home to her apartment from running errands around 1 p.m. She was in med school at this time, so she pretty much parked herself at the kitchen table and studied for the next 5 to 6 hours. She's sitting there and looks up to see a dude casually stroll out of her bedroom. No other entrances. She's sitting by the front door. So he's been there the entire time she's been home. He pauses at the doorway to her kitchen between her and the door. She basically froze. Then her phone rang and kind of startled both of them. She ran to get the phone and he ran out the door. She moved and got an enormous dog. He was in her apartment the whole time. I used to live by myself in an apartment, and that was like my biggest fear. Every time I would come home, I would check my entire apartment before like I would allow myself to get comfortable, because I was always scared that there was like somebody like hiding under my bed or something. When I was younger, my dad was out of town and my mom let me have a few friends over. We lived right by a pretty busy highway, and over the years had quite a few people knock on our door for help. Like their car broke down, they were lost, accident, etc. While my mom was home with us, a man knocked saying he wanted to borrow the phone. My mother told him he could sit on the porch and use her cell phone. The man kept asking to come inside and asking if my dad was home. He eventually started trying to force his way inside. My mom slammed and locked the door, called 911, and put my friends and I into a closet. It took the police department 20 plus minutes to reach us. By that time, my mom had called our neighbor, and he came over with his shotgun and made the guy lay on the ground until the police arrived. Why do the police always be taking so long? My mom was kidnapped, blindfolded, taken to a dark place she still isn't sure was even a man-made structure, and then tied to a chair. The guy that took her kept talking to her the entire time. She has never told me details except that the man was crazy. After a while, she started talking to him, asking him questions, getting him to talk to her about less crazy stuff. She isn't sure how long this went on, just that it was a long time. After quite some time, the man, whom she never saw directly or recognized the voice of, told her, "I don't know why, but I need to let you go." My guess is that she humanized herself enough to him so that he couldn't go through with whatever it was he had initially kidnapped her for. He loaded her back up into the car, dropped her off, still blindfolded, at a convenience store up the road from where she lived, told her to count to 1,000 before taking the blindfold off, then he left. After she got home and told her parents, they didn't believe her and thought she was making it up so that she wouldn't get in trouble for being out too late. I've always thought that like if I was kidnapped or something, I would try to like humanize myself. I think I saw that on an episode of like Grey's Anatomy or something.
When I was young, my parents bought 130 acres to build a house, and then my mom decided that she wanted to decorate that house with antique furniture, and that's where we messed up. We didn't live there long when we started seeing some like shadow figure outside the front door, and my family didn't really believe in ghosts, so none of us really said anything about it until probably like a year later. One of us in the family was like, okay, does anybody else see this outside? Like, I keep seeing it past the window. Everybody in the family was like, oh my gosh, yes, I see it, but I thought it was crazy. The lady that owned the land before us, her name was Lucille, so of course my dad named her Lucille, and we all just refer to her as Lucille now. But we were all like, you know what, she seems nice, she minds her own business, she stays outside, no big deal, just leave her alone. Until I got pregnant. I was 17, so I still lived with my parents, and she decided to welcome herself inside. She would stay very close to me. She was always at every corner I was. I would take a shower, and I could see her out the corner of my eye, standing in the doorway, watching me. Every time I showered, the whole time I was pregnant. No big deal, whatever. Watching after me, being nice. And then I gave birth. Still, no big deal. She was next to me and the baby. I thought maybe she was just a sweet ghost. And then one day, I laid my baby down, I set the camera up, and I went and took a shower, and I was watching the camera while I took a shower, and I saw her laying in the crib next to him. So I ran out the bathroom, and I was like, look, girl, too much, too far, you need to go. You gotta leave. And she listened. She was very sweet. She listened. She moved upstairs to a spare room and didn't bother anybody else, but she would stand in the window and just watch everybody. Literally everybody knows about her. Delivery people, lawn care people, like literally everybody knows about Lucille. Then we ended up moving and I never saw her again until now. So let me know if you want part 2 to find out how she lives with me again.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I work in healthcare, and I've always worked in healthcare. And when I was 18, I worked in a nursing home. And it was my first job right out of high school. And I loved it. It was fun. And, I enjoy healthcare. Anyway, I was working night shift. And I think anybody that works in healthcare and that works night shift, if you know, you know. This was my first time working a night shift. I usually worked the PM shift or from like 3 to 11. I can't remember what it is anymore, but like 3 to 11. But the people that were supposed to come in on nights didn't come. So then I had to stay. So like 3 o'clock in the morning, I was trying to finish up some of the duties. I was helping one of the residents with something, and I was taking some garbage from their room into the utility room. And as I'm walking into the utility room, I see out of the corner of my eye what I thought was the nurse walking into another resident's room across the hallway. And so I walk in the utility room, I drop my stuff off. It takes me like 30 seconds to do. It's not that hard. So when I come out, I look up and I can see the call lights off. So the call light, if you don't know healthcare, they're outside the rooms and they let you know that somebody needs something. So I thought the call light was on when I went in the utility room. That's why I thought the nurse was going in there, and it was off when I came out. So then when I go down the hallway, I can see the nurse standing at the end of the hallway by the nurse's cart. So I go down and I ask her, what did this resident need? And the nurse kind of looks at me puzzled and says, I don't know. You're the one that answered the light. And I said, nope, I didn't. Kind of figured you answered it when you walked in there. And she goes, what are you talking about? I haven't even been down there this whole night. I'm still passing her meds or doing whatever she was doing up there. She goes, I haven't been down there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I literally watched you walk in there. She goes, I have not been down there. I've been at this cart since the shift started. And she could see like the weird, like puzzled look on my face, I guess. So then she was like, she got this shit grin on her face. And she goes, you saw her, didn't you? And I go, care to fill me in? Who was that? She goes, we have a ghost. We have a ghost in the nursing home. We think it was a nurse. And she used to answer call lights, or she is answering call lights. That's why we think she was a nurse. And people see her all the time on the night shift. And I always tell people that this story always freaks me out. I know I do paranormal stuff all the time, and I'm usually a skeptical person when it comes to that because I think a lot of stuff can be explained. But I always tell people I think the reason that story sticks out so much is, number one, it happened to me, so I know what I saw. And number two is that I know what I saw. I knew I saw a person walk in that room. There was no doubt in my mind. I didn't think I saw something. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a blurry thing. Like, I know I watched somebody walk into that room. It has always stuck with me and has always freaked me out. That's my ghost story.
I have a real life horror story to share, so buckle up. This story is 100% real. There are police reports and posts on Nextdoor to prove it. And it's not from a movie, and it's not from a book. It is my real life. So a few years ago, I moved back to my hometown. It's super small. It's super sleepy. There's like 4,000 people. And it's kind of the type of place where there's not a lot going on. And if you're like, Ellen, why would you do that? Money. A couple that I know was like renting a tiny house. It was so cheap, and they were like, hey, if you want to move in, like, you've got the place. And I was like, great, I'll save some money. So I move in, and like literally a couple days into living there, I start to feel like somebody is watching me. Like in my house, around my house, working in my little yard, things just felt very off. And spoiler alert, like ladies, if you have this feeling, anyone, if you have this feeling, please listen to it. Okay, so 2 pieces of context that you need like super quick to understand how insane this story is and how creepy this gets. Because if you consume true crime content, unfortunately, you are in the right place. Couple pieces of context that you need to understand how scary and creepy this is. So the property was divided into sections. The couple that lived in the main house were renting to me. So they lived in the main house. They had their own yard, their own entrance and exit, like kept to themselves. My space was the tiny house in the back, and I had my own tiny postage stamp of a yard. I had my own gate, and I parked my car right outside my gate so I could just get in there and just go to work. I kept to myself. No one knew that I lived there. So not only did this place kind of creep me out, but I started smelling cigarette smoke like 4 days into living there. Like it was evening, I was kind of winding down, getting ready for bed, and I would smell it, and it was so strong, it was like someone was in the room with me. And because I'm a rational person, I was like, it's probably the couple in the main house. Like one of them went outside to smoke, hiding it from the other one, and it's just kind of wafting into my room. And stay with me because this is about to get completely unhinged. I should also add that sometimes my dog would like bark or growl, and I have to confess, you guys, I like shushed her a little bit because we had just moved in, and I was like, there's a lot of unfamiliar sounds. We used to live in the country. I was like, you probably just like hear people going about their lives and you're being like a little bit dramatic about it, and we can't bark at everything. I have regrets. You're the best. So then comes the fateful night when my dog indicates that she has to go out to go to the bathroom, and I smell the cigarette smoke again, and I'm just like, 2 for 1, I'm gonna go outside with her and just gently call over the fence and just be like, hey, couple who lives in the main house, like, can you not smoke right outside here, because like it's kind of wafting over the fence and into my bedroom, and it's super strong. And I'm like, tonight's the night. We are having a conversation about it. So I let myself out the front door, no shoes, no pants, no phone, and I see a man in my yard, and he is looking in my bedroom window and he's smoking. So before I tell you how I respond to this, if you've ever been in an emergency situation and had like a weird response, I would love to hear about it, because when people are in shock, when we're in disbelief, we just don't react the way that one might think. Sometimes it's not like super rational, Now I have the gift of hindsight to look back and think of all the things I would have, could have, should have done, but I didn't have that at the time. I was really just like a girl with no pants and no shoes and no phone and no gun. And no security system, which like since then I have changed. So I responded in a weird way. I like called out, hey, as if like he was a friend of mine who was just dropping by and forgot to text, because I thought like, there's no way this is a stranger. Like he must be like lost, like he went to the wrong house, or like a friend or a friend's partner who's like dropping off a book for me, or like dropping off some apples from their tree. Like I truly live in Delulu land, you guys. You have no idea. But no, quickly I realized that this was a stranger, and he was in my yard and he was watching me. So he sees me, and he's clearly on drugs because his reaction is super slow, and he turns around and like takes off, but he's like not very fast. And I instinctively take off after him, as any completely irrational person would do. Like, what am I gonna do if I catch him? And I'm running through the dark alley with no shoes on, stepping on like pine cones and pine needles and stuff. And he gets away because of course he does. And then I'm standing in a dark alley, like for what feels like 10 minutes, which is probably like 10 seconds. And that's when it dawns on me, like finally, that this person is not lost. He's not a friend of a friend. He is a stranger who's been stalking me for months and watching me through my window, smoking. So this person who just got away has seen me get out of the shower and read a book in bed and scroll on social media. I've even woken up in the middle of the night to the smell of his cigarette smoke, which means that he's watched me sleep before. And this is all too much for my brain to comprehend. So I just stood there, you guys. And then I'm like, I have to call the police. Like, this is an actual emergency that actually just happened. Like, I have to call the police. So I go back into my little tiny home and I find my cell phone and I just sit on the bed, sweating and shaking and trying to convince myself that this was a real thing that really just happened and I did not make it up. I didn't imagine it. So I call the police and they're very nonchalant for some reason. I'm like, would you be this nonchalant if this was you or like your partner or your family? Because I hope not. And this person is a neighbor of mine. And you know that's true because like it's not random that 4 days after I moved in, I started smelling cigarette smoke outside of my house. I am confronted with the knowledge that like this person is very close to me and has been for like a while. And it's a tale as old as time because when I talk to the police of this, 4,000, 5,000 person tiny ass town, it very quickly pivots from like him stalking me and like his actions and like anything about him to like, do I do this or did I do that? It was like, do you have a gun? And at the time I was like, no, I have a gun now. And they were like, did you have a home security system? I didn't have one at the time. And did you lock your doors every day? And I was like, honestly, not really. I thought this was safe and I was wrong. And I felt so stupid and I felt so small and embarrassed, which I should not have had to feel. Okay, this is getting very long. Let me know if you want a part 2. But spoiler alert, I am not the only woman he watched.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
And I'll go second. So these are admittedly not my stories, they're my dad's stories. Just a little background on my father. He doesn't believe in ghosts at all. Not even a little. He thinks that that is made up. It's fake. And now that I've gotten that out of the way, he has experienced the scariest hauntings I've ever heard about in my life. When he was younger, I would say probably about like 9 to 13, in that age range, he had a friend that started getting into like kind of occult weird things. He started feeling a little bit uncomfortable around this friend, and he remembers 2 really specific incidents with this friend that made him stop hanging out with this kid. One of which was they were at a river with a bunch of other boys and they were swimming, playing as kids do. And this friend in question was in the water next to my father. And while they're playing, my dad looks up and standing across the river at the tree line, and this is in rural Canada, like in the middle of nowhere, Canada, standing at the tree line is that friend. And he's just staring at my dad and he just goes like this. Mind you, that kid is next to my dad at that time, so he's seeing 2 of them. And the other one just turns around and goes into the woods after beckoning my dad after him. I hate that story. It makes my eyes tear up. I hate that story. But my dad, being a child, still hung out with this kid. So he goes over to his house, and this kid is sitting in this big, like, lazy boy recliner chair. And he's sitting there, and he's kind of just staring at my dad while they're talking, acting super strange. And he looks at my dad and he goes, "I've been in your dreams." And as soon as he says that, my dad hears like pounding on the underside of this kid's chair. He's sitting cross-legged in his chair, not moving, and he hears something beating on the underside of the chair. And this kid goes, "I've been in your dreams." And my dad
stone-faced, dead-ass looks at me and goes, and the fucked up thing, he had been in my dreams. My father doesn't believe in ghosts. I asked him to explain these to me in like a scientific way. He goes, I was just hallucinating. I was just having a vivid hallucination. Anyway, those are just two of my favorite little stories from my father, who swears the ghosts are not real.
Want to hear something spooky? Alright, you know the drill. Get something to drink, get comfy, and settle in, because I have more stories from the 2019 Facebook post where parents tell you all the creepy stuff that their kids have said. And we have finally reached the end of the post. So I have some bangers tonight. The first commenter says, my 7-year-old kept sneaking into my bed at night. This went on for about a week, and one night I finally convinced him to sleep in his own bed. I was rubbing his back as he drifted off to sleep, and he said, I like sleeping in my room, Mommy. I just sleep in your room to keep the dead twins from hurting you. They told me it was hard for them to leave you all alone. I slept on the couch for about a month after that. The next commenter says, my 3-year-old son started seeing my deceased best friend's spirit. I let him know that he didn't need to be afraid of that. He said, oh, Mommy, I'm not afraid of that. I'm afraid of the man who wears suspenders that hides behind my bookcase. He looks sneaky, like he wants to take me. Nope, don't love that, don't love that. The next one says, we're renting a house that was built in the 1950s or the 1960s. From the time we moved in, I feel like I'm being watched. One night in 2012, I was washing dishes and started getting that feeling like I was being watched again. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed what looked like a head poking its head out of the hallway and then ducking back once it saw me looking. It seemed like it done that over and over again. I finally got tired of the suspense and turned my whole body to face the hallway and looked, and there was nothing there but an empty hallway. I thought my husband was just trying to trick me, but he was asleep in our bed the whole time. I was pregnant at the time with our youngest. One night I was up late working at my desk, and there was a mirror in front of my desk, and I kept seeing something behind me. It was just quick movement of what looked to be a black figure. I thought it was my husband. Turns out it wasn't. I immediately shut everything down and went straight to bed. When I got into bed, I heard papers rustling in my office. I was absolutely terrified, so I just curled into my husband and tried to sleep. Another time, I was curling my hair and thought I kept seeing my youngest son run into the toy room. I started talking to him, but he didn't answer, so I got up to check. There was no one in the toy room, and my son was in the living room watching TV. Another time, I thought I saw my son run into the kitchen. My husband had just got done giving him a shower, and when I told him that I saw him in the kitchen, he said, no, he's still in the bedroom. I felt like I was going crazy, seeing people that weren't there. Then one day, while I was napping and my boys were watching TV, I woke up to one of my kids standing in the doorway crying. They asked me if I had been running up and down the hallway. I hadn't, I was sleeping. They said that they saw a black shadow running up and down the hallway and they thought it was me. Both of them were scared and crying. My husband brushed it off, but then others started seeing it too. Friends, family, and even my nephew. Different times, same shadowy figure. This went on from 2012 to the end of 2018, with the last thing happening at the end of December. When my oldest daughter was 6, she told me that she saw a little girl in a long white nightgown at her grandma's house that looked just like her. She said she kept motioning for her to follow her, and she was moving her mouth, but no sound would come out. About a month later, I just got done finishing up making dinner, and I turned to tell my daughter that dinner was ready when I saw her down the hallway in what looked like a long white nightgown. All of a sudden, I heard my daughter laugh from behind me at the computer and realized it wasn't her. When I looked back down the hallway, the little girl was gone. When I told my grandma about this, she said that she gets regular visits from her sister that passed away when they were younger, almost monthly, which is about how frequently we go to my grandma's. The next one says, my daughter says weird shit all the time. But one time, she was staying at my sister's house and my mom caught her talking to someone in the bathtub. We asked her who she was talking to and she said the little girl that lives in the closet. We asked her was she an imaginary friend and she said no, she used to live here and she died here in a really big storm when a tree fell on her when she was sleeping in her bed. My sister currently lives in an area that was leveled by Hurricane Andrew in 1992. I didn't even make the connection until pressing her further, she described hurricane-like conditions. The next commenter says that when her daughter was about 4 or 5, she would constantly talk about having visits from someone named Steven. She said he would come in her room and want to play with her at night. Around this same time, my 3-year-old began having night terrors. He would point at the wall and say that there was black water pouring out of it. I asked my daughter to describe Stephen. She said that he was so tall he had to bend over to come through the door. She said he had black skin and red eyes and was really skinny. Between this and my son's night terrors, it was decided to anoint the house. After we done that, we didn't have any more sightings of Stephen or night terrors. The next one says, my grandpa got really sick when I was about 7. About a week after the onset of his illness, I was asleep in my bed one night. It was around midnight, then all of a sudden my lights turned on, my radio that was unplugged in the corner started blaring static, and my Barbie cash register that had no batteries in it started talking. I jumped straight up and went straight to my parents' room. I was so freaked out. A few minutes later, my dad got a call that his dad had passed. We still talk about it to this day, and anytime I even think about it, it gives me chills. The next commenter says, I don't usually comment on stuff like this, but my 4-year-old is having past life memories and it's freaking me out. He's never seen Titanic, we never talk about it, and we don't have any kind of Titanic-themed memorabilia in our home. But one night I was giving him a bath and he got really quiet and said, Mommy, do you remember when the boat broke? I asked him what he meant and he said, the big boat, the cold boat, the one that broke. There was music playing and it tipped over and people fell off. He said people were screaming and I couldn't find Daddy. And when I went into the water, it felt like needles. I didn't understand what he meant, and I said, what are you talking about? That's never happened to you. And he said, yes, it did. He said, it happened before I was your kid. I died. After that, I calmed him down and tried to get his mind off of it. It seemed to work for the most part because he hasn't really brought it up heavily since. Though every now and then he still gets night terrors and is always screaming about the quote, black water. He doesn't want to be in the black water. Something that I have always felt really strangely about is a lot of people my age had this weird phase where they were obsessed with Titanic. Like, why could I quote that movie in like 3rd grade? Like, I remember my teacher, Miss Lynn, saying, what was another name that they used to call the Titanic? And I immediately raised my hand, the type A Virgo I am, and was like, the Ship of Dreams! She was like, no, the unsinkable ship. And I was like, well, that too, but whatever. Like, even boys in my class were really obsessed with it. And that was like, you know, a drama, like a romance movie. It was just really weird. It was like a really weird phenomenon. Either way, even though I'm done reading the post, I still have a bunch of stories saved from the post that are less pertaining to children, but I will read those in another part. Anyway, stay spooky, stay creepy, tuck your feet in, hide the mirrors, do all the things, and I hope you have a very spooky night.
I think there's a ghost in my house, and that's not even the scary part. Get a drink and a snack and a blanket because this is another 10-minute scary story time. The first night. So I haven't gotten much sleep the last few nights. There's apparently something up with the alarm system in my house. It was already installed when I moved into the house, which I was so thankful for since it was the first house I'd lived in on my own, and sometimes it's scary being a woman living alone. This gave me a bit of comfort knowing that at least if someone came in, I would know about it and maybe it would even scare them away. Okay, so back to it. The alarm. It's nothing fancy, no cameras or anything. It's not even actually connected to notify help if I needed it. However, if an alarm is tripped, it makes an obnoxiously loud beeping sound and has a feature that when a door or window is opened or a motion sensor in a room is set off, this lovely sounding lady with a British accent will come on the intercom and tell you where the point of entry or movement is coming from. The voice sounds like a robot, a British robot, enunciating words and pauses very dramatically. Back door. Front door. It became somewhat of a joke for my friends and me. When they would come over, we would mock the voice by imitating her accent. Front door. Back door. I would imitate the motion sensors by myself because I never set the alarm for those when my friends were coming over. So I'd be home alone, set the alarm, and walk through the dining room, and the voice would chime in. Dining room, motion. Loft, stairs, motion. As I'd make my way upstairs to my bedroom, which was technically the loft, I would chime along with her as she notified me of my every movement. Anyways, back to the strange thing it has been doing. I know this is gonna sound crazy. The voice on the alarm, I think it's been changing in the middle of the night. I heard it first a few nights ago. It came on and said, back door. But I swear it wasn't in an accent, and there was no dramatic pausing between the words. I was half asleep, but I heard it. It repeated 4 times that I know of, possibly more before I awoke to it. I roused myself out of bed and made my way slowly and cautiously down the stairs. As I did, the normal voice and the loud beeping came on. Loft, stairs, motion. I stood there for a moment in silence, waiting to see if the voice would sound again, but it did not. So I made my way further down the stairs and eventually through the dining room towards the back door. The voice came on again. Dining room motion. I have to admit, I was a little freaked out, but I knew I had to check. So I kept making my way through the house, flipping on every light on my way until I reached the back door. It was shut and locked. I let out a huge breath. I didn't even realize that I had been holding it the whole time. I jiggled the knob and pulled on the door just to be sure. I poked around the house, flipping on and off all the lights as I went room to room just for peace of mind. I was alone. The voice chimed with me as I made my way past all the motion sensors, turned off the beeping alarm, and went back upstairs and into bed. I fell asleep with no more incidents that night. First thing in the morning, I made my way to the stairs, hearing the voice chiming on the intercom. Side note, I have the alarm programmed to deactivate beeping at 7 a.m. Loft, stairs, motion. Dining room, motion. In the same British accent with those dramatic pauses per usual. I made my way to the intercom screen and started to play with the settings. As it turned out, the lady's voice isn't the only option that I have to listen to. There is also a voice of a man. He sounds Australian. So I decided to give the lady a rest and take the man off the bench. Night 2. It was a weeknight and I had to work the next morning, so I just did my normal home alone routine, made dinner, watched some television, did the before bed hygiene routine, checked the locks on the front and back door, and set the alarm. I had forgotten that I changed the voice, so it startled me briefly when it alerted the first motion alarm. Dining room, motion. Loft, stairs, motion. The man voice had the same robotic sound as the lady. I woke again in the middle of the night. This time, I wasn't sure why. I just woke up and laid there, staring at the ceiling. I don't know what time it was or how long I had been lying there awake until I heard it. Dining room, motion. The voice. The woman's voice from the night before. A chill ran through my entire body. I knew I should have kept some type of weapon upstairs with me. I was terrified now. I didn't know what to do, so I picked up my cell phone from the nightstand and called 911. I stayed on the phone with dispatch until I heard a knock at my front door. The dispatcher assured me that the officers she sent had informed her that they were there at my front door. I ran down the stairs, tripping the alarm as I blew down them. I didn't even go to enter the pass key to turn it off. I bolted to the front door and threw it open. The police officers, there were 2 of them, entered. I still was so terrified that they had to ask me to deactivate the alarm. Then it dawned on me, and I didn't know whether to feel more terrified, relieved, or just plain stupid, but the alarm hadn't been going off when I heard the voice. It was only the voice, the wrong voice. I tried to explain this to the officers and they wrote some things down on their notepads, exchanged glances at each other, and said to me that they didn't find anyone in the house or see any signs of someone trying to enter. They told me to call back if I needed them and tried to make me not feel so crazy, even though I could tell they thought that I had imagined the whole thing. They left and I went through the house and turned on all of the lights. I double-checked all of the doors and windows, I set the alarm, and I made my way back upstairs, this time with a kitchen knife to keep on the nightstand. I left a small lamp on in my bedroom and fell back asleep. Night 3. At this point, I am thoroughly freaked out. I know for sure what I heard the night before, and I spent the entire day trying to make sense of it. I came up with nothing. But what am I supposed to do? This is my home. I won't leave it. On the 3rd night, I was so uneasy, I spent my evening on the couch watching stand-up comedy and drinking a bottle of wine. I needed to keep my mind off of the events from the past 2 nights. It was next to impossible, but by some miracle, I managed to curl up on the couch and fall asleep. I awoke to the faint light of the television. There was no sound. Since my show had finished, it reverted back to the menu screen and stayed there. Suddenly, I felt cold, and then I heard it. Bedroom window. And silence. Bedroom window. Then the unmistakable sound of the floor creaking above my head. Then silence. Aside from my heart about to pump out of my chest, I don't know how I managed to stay relatively calm, but I did. I picked up my phone from next to me on the couch and I dialed 911. I whispered, as faint as I could, "Someone is in my house. Send help." And I hung up. Terrified that they would call back, I turned my phone to silent and slid it into my sweatpants pocket. As quietly as I possibly could, I got up off the couch. I had nowhere to go. My living room was like a nest at the back of my house. No door to outside and no windows that opened, just large bay windows to let light in. I had curtains that draped down to the floor to cover them. I heard the floor creak above me again. This time it didn't stop, and I heard it travel across the ceiling towards the stairs. And then the alarm voice. Loft, stairs, motion. Instinct must have kicked in because I shut the television off and flattened my body against the wall where one of the windows was and covered myself in the long dark curtain. Dining room motion.
The intruder was getting closer. I knew with the turn of one more corner in my house that they would be at the entrance of the living room. I had wished that I could see, even faintly, through the curtains, but I could not. I stood as still as possible and tried not to breathe. I heard the sound of heavy boots crossing the floor. I heard the footsteps moving closer until they breached the entrance to the living room. My living room floors are hardwood, and I have a large rug in the middle. I used this to determine where in the room the intruder was. I knew that they were moving closer to me because I heard the boots on the hardwood, and then silence, and that could only mean that they were on the rug. Nothing for a minute, until police department. At that moment, I thanked God and then cursed when I realized I had flinched at the foreign sound. I knew my movement had been seen because I heard the boots scurry towards me, and then I could feel a light warmth. It was body heat. This person was practically standing right against me, with only the curtain between us. Even though I could not see, I knew that we were face to face, and then he spoke. "Found you." His voice was deep and ominous. The police again, banging on the door. "Police department, open the door or we're gonna break it down. You were supposed to be in bed," he whispered. The banging on the front door got louder, and I knew they were trying to break it down. "I've been watching you for too long, and I will be back." I then felt his hand touch my face, and through the curtain, gently, he rubbed my cheek, glided his hand down the side of my neck, and slightly grasped my throat before letting go and running out of the living room. I heard the voice, "Dining room, motion. Loft, stairs, motion." They had broken the door frame with the deadbolt. I saw bright lights, and I threw the curtains off of me and screamed, "I'm in here, he went upstairs." The voice on the alarm didn't know what to do. Bedroom, dining, stairs, window. It was all motion sensors, all jumbled into one, as the officers made their way up the stairs and through the rest of the house. Chaos erupted in the one place that was supposed to be safer than any other. Within minutes, the officers had gathered in my dining room. The house was clear. 2 officers split up, one searching the backyard and the other left in the squad car to search the area. I had begun telling them what had transpired while another team came in to look for evidence. By the time all was done, the police had not found the man and concluded that he had somehow figured out how to slip the lock on my bedroom window. After further investigation, they had discovered scratches on the outside lock to my back door, a sign that someone had either attempted to or had successfully picked that lock in the past. I froze. 2 nights before, when I had heard the strange voice say, "Back door," it was a warning to me that someone was trying to come through the back door. I almost threw up when I had thought about the voice alerting me to the dining room motion detector. The police assured me that they would be keeping a watch on my house for the rest of the night and probably many nights to follow, but somehow I didn't feel any better. Night 10. A week has gone by since my horrifying incident and all has been quiet. The police watch is still in effect, but they backed off a little by parking down the street. Maybe they thought they were being sneaky. During the week, I learned a few things, though. I learned that 6 months before the incident in my home, a woman around the same age, size, and look as me had been violently murdered in her home in a neighborhood less than a mile from me. The police had been to her house once before the murder took place. She had called to report an intruder in her home. She had said that she didn't get a look at the person, that she only heard a voice, a woman's voice. It said, "Bathroom window." The police didn't know what to make of it, and the night after the report, she was dead. They had noted the similarity of the voices in her story and the one that I had given them the night before. The strange look they exchanged that night, that was why. I became intrigued to learn more about this woman. Clearly the killer has a type, and I was it. I wasn't ready to call his bluff on his threat to come back for me. When and if I learn anything more, I will post again. There is a really intense part 2 to this story. I've read it before, so if you would like for me to read it to you, let me know in the comments. Also, FYI, I do the same type of stories on YouTube as well, and I can do them a little bit longer on there than I can here, so link in my bio.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
I got one for you. So when I was 19, I moved into this house after a breakup, and I found this room on Facebook Marketplace. This girl was selling her room or whatever, subleasing it, and it was, I think, $250 a month, and I was like, yeah, let's go. So I moved into this place, and it is a very old home. It was made out of local stone, and it was on this block that all the houses were made out of local stone, and if they weren't made out of local stone, they would not still be standing. I'll just say that. They're very old. So this house had been converted into separate apartments, and I was living in a room that you had to walk through a bathroom to get to, and this room was also connected to another bedroom, but we just put like furniture in front of it, so it kind of felt like a bedroom. So that's where I was staying. And the first night that I was sleeping there, I was woken up out of a dream, don't know what I was dreaming about, and I saw this woman just like hovering over me, looking at me. And I looked at her for a few seconds, and when she realized I was looking at her, I just saw her eyes get really wide and she looked nervous and she disappeared. And I've never really given that a lot of credit because I was waking up out of a dream. You know, sometimes you just see things. I don't know. But then the next day when I was leaving to go do something else, you know, I was opening my door, going through the bathroom to get out of the house. I swore that I saw someone like crouched in the corner of the shower. And I thought that was weird. But because the night before and how I was like, that was probably just a dream. I'm probably just paranoid right now. I'm not going to give it any credit. So time goes on, right? And I get a cat. Love the little thing. She's precious. And it gets to a point where, you know, I'm 19. I'm full-time college student. Her food was more expensive than mine, and I couldn't afford to keep her anymore. So one of my friends took her, and I noticed as soon as she was gone that things started to get a little hairy. Like from that day forward till I moved out, every single day something happened. Didn't matter if it was daytime, nighttime, or anything. But that little figure that I had seen crouched in the shower was a little boy. And he was very upset that my cat was not there anymore. So what did he do? He terrorized me. Like, it got to the point where I had to rearrange my room so when I would wake up and roll over in the middle of the night, I wouldn't see him because he would stand in the corner where I had my cat's stuff as if like protesting that she was gone. And that was every single night from that point on. During the day, I would have hangers and clothes fly out of my closet. Did not matter. Door would open, closet and clothes would just fall out. And it became a normal thing, you know, like I would see him and I wouldn't think twice about it because I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to encourage it. So what I would do is I wouldn't say anything. If he was really scaring me, I'd go to someone else's house. I just dip out because, you know, like child spirits, you don't really know if it's a real child or not. I think this was a real child because he was just throwing tantrums and taking it all out on me. The scariest thing that ever happened with him though was I was doing laundry one day. I guess my cat had probably been gone for a couple months now, and I'd become adjusted to seeing him. It wasn't anything new. And I was folding my laundry on my bed, and I watched him crawl out of my closet, look at me, and crawl underneath my bed. It actually makes me sick to my stomach, even thinking about it, because I don't know if you've seen any scary movie. It was horrifying. So yeah, I dipped. I didn't come back for like 2 days because that was horrifying. And before I left though, I did get on my hands and knees and look under the bed to see if he was there. One of the bravest moments of my life, he wasn't. And at that point, I was already done. You know, I didn't care that I didn't see him. I was done. So, I mean, my laundry was clean. It didn't matter. I dipped. And from that point on, it never got that bad again, but he was almost always in the shower when I would be leaving. And the way that our bathroom was set up, like the mirror faced the shower, and there would be times where like I would be getting ready. I'm crying. I would be getting ready and I would see his little stinking head pop up in the mirror. And I had to start sleeping with a face mask because I would roll over in the middle of the night and he would either be in the corner of my cat's stuff or he would be at the end of my bed or he'd be in another corner. Like it it was something straight out of Insidious. And I'd say that's one of the worst ghost stories I have at that house, definitely, because I never saw that woman again. There was one figure I kept seeing in the kitchen, but I never saw their face. They only stood with their back to me. So, you know, I think our timelines were just crossing or something, but no one else in the house that lived there ever had any encounters that I know of. And yeah, so that's how I was terrorized by a little child, ghost, spirit, for having to get rid of a cat, for being poor, essentially.
Okay, so picture it. It's the summer of 2011, okay? I'm freshly 20 years old, and I just had my very first child. My now ex-husband had to go work out of town, and I did not want to be alone with a baby at 20 years old, okay? Like, she was 2 months old. So I decided that while he's out of town for the month, or maybe less than a month, who knows, however long he's gone, I'm going to go down to the country and stay with my parents because I missed them. I wanted them to see the baby, and I didn't want to be alone, you know? My grandmother was still living at the time, and I wanted her to be able to spend some time with the baby. So everything's good. I get down there. My daddy has built an addition onto the house, and that's where I'm going to be staying, right? They got this room all freshly painted, got a bed, got a crib, got a rocking chair, got the whole nine set up, and it's going to be a great time. Now, my baby, she was super colicky, okay? So it took a long time to get her settled the first night that we were there. Mind you, this was pretty much the first time that I had spent the night since I left home. I'd been back to visit, but it was like the first time I was spending the night. So I finally get the baby down, and I decided I'm going to sleep. So I'm sleeping, and all of a sudden, I hear knocking, and it wakes me up. I hear knocking because there was a window. And I know that no one is outside knocking. Now, it's the middle of the night, okay? And this is the country, rural North Carolina. Let me tell you, back in 2011, my parents did not have Wi-Fi. They didn't even have access to Wi-Fi. They could not get cable. It is that rural of an area, okay? There's literally a graveyard in the backyard and farm animals. There's nobody. Trust me, there's no living person that is walking around knocking on windows in the middle of the doggone night. So even though it scares me, I go on back to sleep because I'm used to weird stuff happening at this house against my childhood home. I'm just surprised that it's the first night and they're already messing with me the very first night that I'm going to be here. I don't know if they missed me or what, but I go on back to sleep. A little while later, I get up, feed my baby, diaper change, all that kind of stuff that you do when you have a newborn. And as I'm falling back asleep, I hear knocking again. I ignore it and I go back to sleep. So again, I hear knocking again later on in the night, and I wake up, and I'm annoyed at this point because I'm tired, and I tell it, I don't know what I'm telling, who I'm telling, but I say out loud something along the lines of, leave me alone, I need to go to sleep. I'm about crying because I'm so tired. And I go on back to sleep. I ain't worried about it. Like, that ghost could have come and rocked the baby for all I cared. I was going to bed, okay? So now it's like another AM feed. I don't know, maybe 2, maybe 3 AM feed. Who knows? So I'm up with the baby. I'm feeding her, diaper change, all that stuff. So as I'm getting her back settled down to sleep, I see out of the corner of my eye the rocking chair in the corner of the room. Now, I did not go sit in the rocking chair because it just gave me a weird vibe and I was more comfortable in the bed. I see the rocking chair and I see it slowly go. I swear to God, it slowly started to move, ever so slightly, to the point where I thought it was my eyes playing a trick on me, right? Until I started hearing a little soft creak. This was a really old rocking chair my mama had for a long time, and I always didn't like it. I don't know where she got it from. Super old rocking chair, and it would go creak, 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 and I swear I started moving, and it scared me so bad. I was paralyzed with fear. I was frozen in fear, just sitting there with my baby. Like, what am I gonna do? I don't even know how, but eventually I fell back asleep, and I don't know. Maybe the chair didn't move, but I'm telling you, with the knocking, that chair moved. That chair moved. I'm sure y'all think I'm crazy, and that's okay. I've accepted that maybe I am, but that chair, it moved. The very next day, I told my mama, I said, if you want me to continue to stay here, you're gonna get that chair up out of here, and I don't want to see it ever again in this room because I am thoroughly freaked out. Now, this was the very first night me back home in my childhood home since I had left home, okay? I got other stories where I heard something call my name and nobody else was home but me and the baby, but that's for another day.